Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we're going to be doing my reading wrap-up from January to June. So if you missed it, last year in 2024, I started doing reading videos on my channel. I've always enjoyed reading, but I feel like in the past few years, I've really ramped up the number of books that I read each year that I've been able to kind of put them into different reading YouTube videos. I've made a couple videos now, so I will leave a link to those in the description box if you want to check them out. But today, I'm basically going to just be going over all of the books that I've read so far in 2025 from January to June. Last year, my Goodreads challenge for the year was to read 13 books, and I read 22 last year. So I moved my challenge up a little bit this year to 15, and so far in the first half of the year, I've read 13 out of 15 books. So I think next year I might need to make it a little bit higher of a goal. I did want to share two things before we get started looking at each of the books. The first thing is that I actually started a reading journal this year. This is my cute little Archer and Olive notebook that is my new reading journal. It's super cute and has a bunch of fun reading related spreads, and I write little reviews of all the books that I read in it. I actually showed all of the pages in it in a recent video on the Archer and Olive YouTube channel. I'm not sure if it will be posted by the time I share this video, so if it's not, follow me on Instagram so I can keep you updated on when that video gets posted. I also started a fun new personal project this year. If you're new to my channel, I'm a graphic designer and an illustrator. That's what I do for work, that's what I do for fun. And I started a new personal project this year of redesigning book covers that I've read. I'll put a couple of the ones that I've done on the screen. This is just a passion project for me, but it has been so much fun the past year doing this, and I've actually redesigned covers for several of the books that I'm going to talk about in the video, so if I did a redesigned book cover, I will put it on the screen while I'm talking about the book. You can keep up with all of my design stuff on Instagram. I've actually made a new Instagram for all of my graphic design related things as opposed to like my journaling and crafting page, and that one is called @graciecreates, so you can follow that over there. Lastly, I am going to be sharing like my 5-star rating for all of the books on this list, even though I don't really care about 5-star ratings, that I feel like they're not super helpful all the time. I do give books that because I feel like it's easy for recommending things to people. Take all of mine with a grain of salt. I don't know, books are so personal that it's hard to sum up your entire take on something in the 5-star scale. Anyway, if you want to see some real-time reading updates from me, you should follow me on Instagram because I always post what I'm reading on my Instagram story, and I do real-time little mini reviews or talk about what I'm reading next. So you can follow along for more reading content on there. Okay, so getting into my 2025 reads so far, I'm going to go in chronological order. The first book that I read this year was The Midnight Feast by Lucy Foley, which is interesting because the first book that I read last year in 2024 was also a Lucy Foley book, so that's kind of interesting. Lucy Foley is one of my favorite authors. This is now the 4th book that I've read by her. She does murder mystery, thriller, stuff like that, and that's usually my favorite genre to read, so I really like her. This book is a classic murder mystery that takes place at a really fancy estate or mansion, and it kind of goes back and forth in time with the characters, like about what they were like a long time ago and how they knew each other and how all of their lives are kind of entangled together. I really like this book. I did think that it was a little bit predictable, but I feel like it was just because this is the 4th book that I've read by this author, so I feel like I know her kind of tropes. I did still really enjoy it, and it was a very quick read for me, so it was definitely very enjoyable. If you like murder mystery, I'd say definitely read it, and I gave this one 3 stars. I did actually design a book cover for this one, so I'll put it on the screen here. This one was super fun. The second book that I read this year was The 5-Star Weekend by Ellen Hilderbrand. This is a book that I wanted to read because Shannon Berry, or @BerryHappy on Instagram or TikTok, recommended it. She's a big reader, and she said that this was one of her favorite reads of the year last year, so I was really excited to read it, especially because I've always heard about Ellen Hilderbrand, but I've never read one of her books. The 5-Star Weekend is the story of a woman who is a widow. Her husband died, and she decides that her first event that she's going to do after the death of her husband is having 4 of her best friends from different parts of her life, like her childhood best friend, high school, college, adult life friend, all come to her house on Nantucket for a 5-star weekend where they're like going to fancy restaurants, she's cooking dinner, they're just like having a really nice time together. This book, oh my god, it hit me like a truck. I loved this book. Every single character I loved. They were all so well written. The story was so gripping. Like, oh my gosh, it's so good. I feel like when you describe the synopsis, it doesn't sound like it would be that like exciting, but like there's kind of a thrilling mystery aspect to the book that really grips you in right at the beginning, and it's so good. So I gave this book 4 stars, and I actually also designed a cover for this one, and it's one of my favorites that I've done, so I'll put that on the screen. My third read of the year was Conversations with Friends by Sally Rooney. I'm definitely a late bloomer when it comes to Sally Rooney. This is the first year that I've read any of her books, but I've read 2 so far. I'll talk about the other one later. And I feel like she's an author that is kind of an acquired taste, or she's somebody that like isn't for everyone, you know? I use this phrase a lot, but I feel like her books can kind of fall into the category of like no plot, just vibes. Like, stuff happens, but it's more about like the relationships of the characters and the way they talk to each other and stuff like that than it is about some like big story arc. Conversations with Friends is kind of just the story of 2 people who are in and out of love throughout several years of their life, and I'm pretty sure it was turned into a TV show, and I was going to watch it, but it wasn't available. It was on Hulu, I think it was a Hulu original, and it only came out like 2 or 3 years ago, and I went to watch it and it's no longer on Hulu. So I don't know what's happening with that. So I didn't watch it. And also I was like, I don't know if this would be a very good show, so I didn't watch it. Anyway, I gave the book 4 stars. I liked it. I would also just say it's not for everybody. If you've tried to read one of her books before and you didn't like it, I don't know if you would like this, because I feel like, at least from the 2 books that I've read by her, they're very similar. The next book that I read this year was Happy Place by Emily Henry. Happy Place is a classic little rom-com love story book, and it's about a couple who were dating for a long time throughout college and post-college, and then they broke up, and then they're reunited at a lake weekend with their friends from college. And the same thing, the story kind of flashes forward and back in time, where it shows you what it was like when they were first getting together, and then where they are at the lake house, what they're doing. Now, I'm not a big romance reader. I know that that's a very popular genre right now. It's just not my favorite. I've tried to read an Emily Henry book before, like 2 years ago. I tried to read Book Lovers, and I only read half of it and I didn't really like it. But this book, it was like available now on Libby, so I picked it up anyway just to see what it would be like, and I finished the whole thing. I thought it was okay. I only gave it 2 stars, but I think I am just not the target audience for this type of book, and I've heard from a lot of people that like this type of genre. They really like this book, so if you're into that, I'd recommend. It's just maybe wasn't for me. Okay, the next book that I read this year was, of course, Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins, the new Hunger Games book. I'm sure you've heard about this book. I feel like it's the talk of the town, especially now that the movie has been announced and they're casting somebody from TikTok to be in the movie. Anyway, this is actually the only book on my whole first 6 months of the year list that I actually read paperback. I'm a big audiobook person. Actually going to the store and buying a book is a big deal for me because I never do that. I really try not to spend any money on books. But the day that this came out, I knew that the waits on Libby and at the library were going to be too long, and I needed to read it. I can't let this get spoiled for me on TikTok. So I went to the store and I bought a copy of it. If by some chance you haven't heard of it, Sunrise on the Reaping is the newest prequel to the original Hunger Games trilogy. A couple years ago, Suzanne Collins wrote The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, which is a prequel, and then this one is kind of a pseudo-sequel to that. Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes is about the 10th Hunger Games. This one is about the 50th Hunger Games, and then obviously the first of the original Hunger Games trilogy is about the 74th Hunger Games. And this book, it actually follows one of the characters from the original trilogy, Haymitch, as he goes through his own Hunger Games. I wasn't really sure how I was going to feel about it because I love the original Hunger Games trilogy, but I wasn't the biggest fan of Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, but I absolutely loved this book. It is so good. It has all of like the components of the original Hunger Games books that you love. Like, there are funny moments, there are heartfelt moments, there are absolutely harrowing moments that like make you think about the world and how Suzanne Collins is just such a genius writer. But the one thing that I was nervous about this book is that I knew that there are going to be lots of like Easter egg references to characters you already know from the original trilogy, and I am usually a little bit hesitant about that because it can feel very like clumsy or like fan servicey, you know, where it's like almost like a hollow reference. It's just like, oh, I've heard of that person before, but it doesn't really matter. I was kind of scared that this book was going to be like that, but it wasn't at all. I feel like every inclusion of a character you already know was done so perfectly, and they are so important to the story, and it gives you so much more context about all of their lives. So I just absolutely love this book. I'm so excited for the movie. I know everyone keeps talking about it. The casting is insane for the movie, so I'm really excited. I gave Sunrise on the Reaping 4 stars. Okay, after that, I read Orbital by Samantha Harvey, and I'm actually pretty sure that this is considered a novella instead of a novel because it was very short. This was another thing that I read just because it was available now on Libby, and all the other books that I wanted to read had long wait times. So I listened to it, and I think I listened to it in a day because it's super short, and I absolutely loved this book. I gave it 4 stars. It basically just follows the story of a bunch of different astronauts and cosmonauts that are on the International Space Station. It basically is structured in where each chapter is like a phase of the orbit they do around the Earth. It just follows each of the astronauts and cosmonauts on what they're doing at each hour of the day, like during their shifts, what they're thinking about, who they're talking to, who they're missing back on Earth. I don't know, I feel like the reviews that I read of it were very mixed. Like some people thought it was kind of no plot, just vibes. I didn't really think it was like that, but it was very emotional to me and just very beautifully written, and the way that she writes about the International Space Station and about the views of Earth from there, it like feels like she has been there, even though obviously she hasn't. But yeah, it's so good. I'm pretty sure it won the Booker Prize this year. I loved it. After Orbital, I read Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt. I actually started reading this book last year, but I didn't finish it in time before it was due back at the library, so I just let it go, and then I got it again this year and I finished it. Remarkably Bright Creatures is the story of a woman who lives in the Pacific Northwest, and she works as a janitor at an aquarium. It's about how she befriends the octopus that lives in the aquarium and just their relationship over the course of time that she works there, and how she understands how smart the octopus is and how he can communicate. I don't know, it's just the sweetest story. I loved it, and I feel like I would recommend it to anyone, all ages. It was just so cute, so sweet. There is kind of a twist ending, but I definitely predicted what the ending was going to be. That didn't make me love it any less. It was just so sweet. I love the octopus. Oh my god, it was so good. I gave Remarkably Bright Creatures 4 stars, and I also designed a new cover for it, so here it is on the screen. After I read that, I read The Anthropocene Reviewed by John Green. This was actually my first nonfiction read of the year. This book is actually a collection of nonfiction essays written by John Green, and I'm pretty sure that they were originally written as essays, and then he actually did a podcast during the pandemic that was, each of the essays was an episode where he was reading the essays, I'm pretty sure, and then they were put together and published in a book. I really loved this book. The essays are kind of just his take on lots of different everyday things. Like there's an essay about Diet Dr. Pepper, there's an essay about how keyboards became laid out as they are now, there's an essay about Halley's Comet. There's just essays about all different things that he's interested in. Some of them are related, some of them aren't. I know that John Green is kind of a polarizing author. A lot of people think that he's like cliche or like, I don't know, boring or something. I don't know why people don't like him, but I really like him, and I honestly think part of it is that he takes things that like would usually be deemed cliche, but he still makes them very beautiful. Like everything he writes is, I was gonna say obvious, not even obvious, just like simple, but he writes it in a really beautiful way. I know I wrote in my Instagram story mini review of this book that John Green's writing reminds me of one of my favorite musical artists, Porter Robinson. And in one of Porter Robinson's songs, he says, "Cliches are beautiful because they reflect us, and we are beautiful." And I love that. And I feel like that is just so John Green. It's also so Porter Robinson. Like not being afraid to fall into cliche, because there's a reason why cliches are cliche. It's because they connect to so many different people. Anyway, that's me on my little soapbox about John Green. I really like this book. I gave it 4 stars, and I designed a new cover for it, so you can see that here. The next book that I read this year was How to Stop Time by Matt Haig. So this is the second book that I've read by Matt Haig. I read The Midnight Library last year, or maybe the year before that. How to Stop Time has a main character who has a made up but like supernatural disease genetic thing where he ages much slower than everybody else. So he was born in like the 1400s or something in France, and he's still alive now and to the 2000s. And it basically flashes back and forward between his life now, like what he's doing in his current job and his current life, and then all these different phases of his life, like when he lived in England during Shakespearean times, where he lived all throughout the 19th century, people he met, relationships he had, and all the people in the world that have his same disease, they have rules where they're not allowed to really interact with other people. Like they can't be in relationships, they can't fall in love because it would threaten the security and privacy of their lives. And it's basically about how he comes to terms with what is the most important, how he can still connect to people while living the way that he is. I feel like Matt Haig, at least now that I've read 2 of his books, they kind of all fall along a similar line, where it's like a normal story where one of the characters has just some sort of little supernatural thing that allows them to like learn a big lesson in life, like appreciate the small things, or your life is beautiful. I feel like they're kind of self-helpy in that way, but I really like his writing. The stories are very interesting. I like this book. I feel like I liked it about the same as The Midnight Library, and I gave it 3 stars. I also heard recently that I'm pretty sure this book, How to Stop Time, is going to either be a movie or a TV series starring Benedict Cumberbatch, which I feel like is a great casting for this character, and I'm really excited to see that. The next book that I read this year was Yellowface by R.F. Kuang, and this was my first 5-star read of the year, and I also think this is one of my favorite books I have ever read. This book is insane. Yellowface is the story of a woman who is an author, and she and one of her best friends from college who is also an author. After they graduate from college, the friend gets super famous. Her first book goes crazy. She wins a bunch of literary awards. She's a super famous author, and the main character is kind of floundering. She's not having a lot of success as an author. And then in the first chapter, in an off-chance accident, the best friend dies, and the main character steals one of her manuscripts and publishes it as her own. Oh my god, this book, from the first sentence, from the first page, it like locks you in, and you are on like a crazy roller coaster for the entire book. Read this in like one day because I was so excited to read it. I was so excited. I couldn't wait to hear what happened. I was on the edge of my seat the entire time. I remember describing it to my boyfriend and saying that it really reminded me of the movie Uncut Gems with Adam Sandler. It reminded me of that because I remember when I saw Uncut Gems and when that first came out, the thing that everyone was saying about it was like, this movie, it's like you're watching somebody make every single wrong decision over and over and over again, and you as the viewer are like, oh my god, like somebody like guide this person in the right direction. Like you were so stressed the entire time, like the entire runtime of Uncut Gems. You're like I just need somebody to tell me that it's gonna be okay. And I felt the same way reading this book, like being inside the main character's head and like hearing her thoughts. It's like you're watching somebody just go further and further into delusion. Oh my god, it's so good. So I gave it 5 stars, and I also designed a book cover for it, so I'll put it on the screen. I would say this is my biggest recommendation from the list. It's so good. Okay, I have 3 more to talk about. The next one that I read was The Last One at the Wedding by Jason Rekulik. I don't know if that's how you say his last name. I assume it is, but I couldn't find a video of anyone saying it, so I assume that's how you say it. This is another installment in my murder mystery reads of the year. This is a great read about a wedding, which I feel like are always the best venues for murder mysteries, like The Guest List by Lucy Foley is at a wedding. And this one, it's about the main character. His daughter is getting married, even though his daughter and him have kind of been a little bit estranged for the past few years, but he still gets an invite to her wedding. And when he gets there, it's on this huge, gigantic compound of cabins and a mansion on a big lake, and he finds out that the daughter is marrying the son of a super rich inventor and like company founder. Throughout the story, it's about him like learning the dark side of that world, of the people and the company, and all of it taking place throughout the weekend of the wedding. It's really good. I really enjoyed it. Not like my favorite murder mystery that I've ever read, but it was still very exciting and had lots of a really great plot twist that I did not expect. I would give this book 3 stars, and I would recommend it if you like murder mystery. My next read of the year was Normal People by Sally Rooney. So this is my second Sally Rooney read of the year. This one I really liked as well. I gave it also 4 stars, similar to Conversations with Friends. And honestly, the story, the plot of this book is also very similar to that of Conversations with Friends. It's just 2 characters who have known each other since high school, and throughout college they kind of are getting into a relationship, getting out of them, and it follows them like throughout several years of their lives. This one, like I said before, is also maybe falling into no plot, just vibes, but I actually really enjoyed this one. I think I like this one more than Conversations with Friends. And this one was also adapted into a TV show that I'm about to start watching, and the show stars Paul Mescal and Daisy Edgar Jones, who I just love, so I'm excited to watch it. And then my last read of the year is Crying in H Mart by Michelle Zauner. This is my second nonfiction read of the year. So if you haven't heard of it, Crying in H Mart is a nonfiction telling of how the author went to take care of her mom while her mom was dying of cancer. And it's about how after the death of her mom, she reconnected with her culture through food. So I can't believe it took me so long to read this book. If you didn't know, Michelle Zauner, the author of this book, is actually a musician. She is the frontwoman for a band called Japanese Breakfast that I have loved for a long time, seen them in concert a number of times, and I love her. I love her music, I love her lyric writing, and I've known about this book for a long time, but I just knew that it was gonna emotionally wreck me. I think I just held off on it because I was like, I don't know if I can handle that right now. But I finally read it and I'm really glad that I did. I gave it 5 stars. I will say, if you're interested in reading this book, my one thing I would say about it is that this book is raw. Like, it is not shying away from saying the most raw, saddest, heaviest thing you have ever read in your life. It's not shying away from that. It's giving in graphic detail so many things, so many anecdotes about her mom's cancer treatments and about her death and all the things that happened afterwards. I wouldn't read it if you're not in a place to accept that, because it can just be a lot. The couple days that I was listening to the audiobook for this, I was just like, it was so much to handle. It did make me feel like I understood Michelle's music a lot more, and I don't know, I liked it and I'm glad that I read it. Anyway, those are all of my reads so far from 2025. I will have another installment of this series in December for the second 6 months of the year, but if you have any other recommendations for reading related videos in the meantime, I would love to hear what they are. I have done one fun reading video in the past. Last year I did a video where I recommended a book based on each Taylor Swift album, so you could say what your favorite Taylor Swift album was and then I would give you a book recommendation based on it. I like doing videos like that, so let me know if you would like to see something else along that line. And like I said, if you want to see some more from me, you can follow me over on my little corner of the internet, which is at graciecreates on Instagram and at graciecreates on TikTok. I mostly post about art, journaling, crafting, design, but I do always post my reading updates on my stories and little life updates in videos every month. And I will see you in my next video. Bye!